August, what is today's date?
The 23rd.
23rd, thank you. The August 23rd City Council meeting, and we are starting at 7 p.m. Could we have a roll call from the city clerk, Coffee, please? Thank you.
Councilmember Big Stick.
Present.
Councilmember Butterloss.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Here.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Here. And we'll have a salute to the flag by Councilmember.
It's me because I checked. Okay, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a special presentation today, which is a proclamation for Prostate Cancer Awareness Month.
Mayor Beckmeyer, before we proceed with the proclamation, I'd like to make a few statements about tonight's meeting format.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
This meeting is being held by video conference with no physical location open to the public. The public can observe and participate in the meeting via the Zoom link provided in the agenda or by phone to the dial-in number and the webinar ID provided in the agenda. The meeting may also be observed live on local TV channel 26 or online at www.cityofpacifica.org/livestream. For this meeting, live verbal public comments may be made through participation by Zoom. For members of the public participating via Zoom, use the raise hand button to indicate that you wish to speak on an agenda item or during oral communications when the mayor calls upon that agenda item. For those participating by phone, use *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. *6 will unmute you, allow you to unmute once you've been called upon by the mayor by your screen name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. Please clearly state your full name for the record at the start of your public comment. Written and email public comments will not be read during the meeting, but will be made part of the written record and provided to council members. Email comments are not monitored during the live meeting. The format of this meeting may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. You may check on the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at www.cityofpacifica.org for any updates.
Thank you very much. All right, so now we'll move to our special presentation, a proclamation for Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, September 2021. All right. Whereas prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in men and the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men, and the American Cancer Society estimates that there will be 248,530 new cases of prostate cancer in the US in 2021, resulting in an estimated 34,130 deaths. And whereas it is estimated 25,880 men in California will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year, and it is estimated 4,140 California men will die from this disease this year. And whereas the incidence of prostate cancer is almost 80% higher in non-Hispanic Black men than in non-Hispanic white men for reasons that remain unclear. And risk factors for prostate cancer are increasing age, African ancestry, a family history of the disease, and certain inherited genetic conditions. And whereas early stage prostate cancer usually has no symptoms, and studies suggest strong genetic predisposition may be responsible for 5 to 10% of prostate cancer, and late stage prostate cancer commonly spreads to the bones, which can cause pain in the hips, spine, ribs, or other areas of the body. And whereas the 5-year survival rate approaches 100% when prostate cancer is diagnosed and treated early, but drops to 30% when it spreads to the other parts of the body. And whereas the American Cancer Society recommends that men have a conversation with their healthcare provider and make an informed decision about whether to be tested for prostate cancer based on their personal values and preferences. And whereas the city of Pacifica joins communities across our nation to increase the awareness about the importance for men to make an informed decision with their healthcare provider about early detection and testing for prostate cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Pacifica hereby designates September 2021 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Pacifica, done this 23rd day of August, 2021. Thank you. Before we go on, I just have to make a personal comment. My father passed away in 2014 and he had prostate cancer. And he had early onset and he had a lot of treatment, some of it innovative because of his diagnosis. It was now over 30 years ago, but he was 52 or something like that. So I know from personal experience with my own father and in my family, this is serious business. And I really, really urge and really, really request that every man in Pacifica, please consider discussing this with their healthcare providers, because it truly is, it really does impact families.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing that. Appreciate it a lot.
Sure. City Clerk Coffey, do we have a speaker on this topic?
Mayor Beckmeyer, I have Dr. Barry Chaucer from Seton Medical Center, and he was the one that requested this proclamation.
Welcome, Dr. Chaucer. Thank you for being here.
And thank you all for, I know, gosh, how much is happening these days with COVID-19, making sure everybody gets vaccinated, and also how to take care of all of our kids, making sure they're all adequately educated. It's quite a problem. And yet, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to pay attention to oncology problems, and particularly prostate cancer for September. You know, even though we're in a pandemic, cancer cells don't rest for pandemics. They have no respect at all for the party you belong to, race, creed, or anything else. They just keep marching. And I think the idea is just to be able to call attention to the fact that prostate cancer is curable if caught early. It has an unpredictable course, as it sounds like it occurred in your family. And it's the idea of talking to your physician, seeing if you should get a PSA and whether or not you should act upon the result of it. So I thank you all again for paying attention to this public health problem.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Montemayor, do we have any public comment on this topic that we need to address?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I just thought we should check, and I don't have that on my screen right now. Council members, if anyone else has comments or anything you want to add. Okay, great. Thanks very much, everybody, for indulging in taking the time to really bring this to light. It's really, really critical. Thanks a lot. All right, let's move on to our consent calendar. All right. Let me read the directions about the consent calendar. Persons wishing to address the council on any consent calendar item may do so at this time. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Items on the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion unless a council member requests before the vote on the motion to have an item discussed. Time limit on the comments is 3 minutes or less. So council members, do any of you wish to pull consent items for deliberation, discussion by council as a whole. Councilmember Big Stick.
Thank you very much. I would like to pull item number 2, approval of minutes for further discussion.
Okay. And anything else from council? All right. Then we could have public comment on this item.
Mayor Beckmeyer, I'm seeing 3 hands raised at this time. And while Clerk Coffee goes ahead and pulls up the timer, I'll tee up who'll be speaking first. Summer Lee, you are.
Just a quick, as a reminder, if you could please state which item it is that you are speaking on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer.
And remind them that item number 2 has been pulled and we'll have comment later.
Thank you.
Before a vote, yes.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Summer Lee, followed by Christine Bowles. Summer, you may now unmute yourself.
Hi there. I'd like to address item number 8. Members of the council, my name is Summer Lee, and I've lived in the Manor District of Pacifica for over 20 years. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our neighborhood residents. We are happy to see that our neighborhood is under consideration for the storm drainage master plan. However, we are seeking more comprehensive management of stormwaters discharged from the hillside above Monterey Road and entering Big Inch Creek. During heavy rain events, our area experiences flash flooding. City storm drains are inadequately sized and Big Inch Creek lacks adequate capacity. The creek is scoured by the extreme water velocities pouring in from the drains. Surface water is overtopping the drain inlet at the back of the sidewalk on Monterey, and a dangerous amount of flood water is flowing down the street itself. Moreover, let us not forget the terrible closure of Ocean Shore School for several weeks due to debris flow that originated in Big Inch Creek, causing flooding. We ask that you instruct staff tonight to include a comprehensive study of the drainage needs of this part of Pacifica in the scope of work for the contract being approved tonight for the 2022 Stormwater Plan. We request that this neighborhood study be conducted urgently because the Engineering and Public Works Department have no existing records on file for our neighborhood storm drain system. Let me repeat, when our neighbors were trying to understand the impact of a development in that area, we discovered that the block books for the site were blank. We feel that emergency funds should be used in order to begin remediation work promptly. We also request that you remind staff to include the findings of this study in the hazard safety element of the 2021 general plan update. And as a final note, when some of us propagandize the myth that new infill development, especially luxury development, brings revenue to our city, let these sort of expenses be noted as the overlooked long-term impact on our city. New development costs many times over in impacts on our city's infrastructure and long-term costs than it ever does in short-term revenue. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Summer. And I have seen one more hand raised by Christine Bowles. Christine, you may now unmute yourself.
Good evening, council and staff. I actually have comments on items 3, 4, and 8. For number 3, the 700 Palmetto, I would request to pull the item so that we can hear before the approval of the work from Public Works to get a little bit more information about the issues in this 80-foot section of sewer pipe. I'd like to see a map of where it's located, especially as looking at the sewer system master plan from 2011. This seems to be a section of newer piping. The sewer main should be made of something that does not corrode, obviously, and the fact that a pipe underground is sagging is very troubling. Is there a sinkhole or some other reason for the eroding of the base soil? I think it's important that we understand the issues before we jump into replacing them so that we don't end up in this situation again. On item 4, I just want to ask where the Affordable Housing Fund is. I don't see that listed, and is that money invested? And then item 8, I actually have a very long comment that I'm going to run out of time for here, so I'm hoping that you might pull that item as well. And thank you, Summer, for your input as another neighbor in the area. But page 234 of the summary report is actually incorrect about some of the issues around Big Inch Creek and Monterey Road. And I would need more time to correct those for you. I'm grateful that the study is being funded, but I'm concerned about the terms outlined for monitoring. We've had 2 years of drought, and if this year is also drought, it will not give you correct information, to be collecting data over a 4-week period of time, which is what the consultant is proposing. I was just checking the NOAA website, and they are actually predicting 70% chance of another El Nino drought year. So again, I'm not sure that we would be collecting data that would be very useful if that's the case. And thirdly, I'm really curious why there's no mention in the contract for public input. I would think that the residents who live in these areas would have very helpful information over many years of understanding the storm drain issues during wet and dry years. And I only see 10 hours allocated for data collection and no mention of speaking with residents. And I really think that would be a valuable part of the report. And again, if you were able to pull this item, I can give you more information to correct the information in the report about Monterey Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Madam Mayor, I'm seeing no more hands raised at this time. Mayor Beckmeyer, you appear to be muted.
Then we will close public comment on the consent calendar and bring it back to council. Councilmember Big Stick, did you have a comment or a question?
I'd like to pull number 8 so that we can get that a little bit better fleshed out. I'd also like to follow up on the questions regarding items 3 and 4, and pardon my memory, I don't think I'd be able to articulate it as the asker had articulated it, but perhaps we could just get a synopsis on item number 3 and whether or not it would bear having I have not drunken caffeine today, so pardon my brain right now. I
You
thought I
need
could
that
survive
tea.
without it. I needed my tea. But if we could get a
Okay.
little bit of the why for number 3 and a little bit about that fund on number 4 and whether or not the money's invested.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see our city attorney Bazzano is with us. Would you like to give us some process points?
I just wanted to clarify if Councilmember Big Stick is just asking staff to comment on 8.
Number 8, I'm asking for to be pulled.
Okay, so pulled for discussion or?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So items 2 and 8 are being pulled for discussion, and then there's clarifying questions on 3 and 4.
Yes.
And I see Deputy Director of Public Works Lewis Sun is with us, and also Deputy Director of Public Works Bautista. Who would like to respond to the questions on number 3? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, Lewis Sun, Deputy Director of Public Works, Wastewater. In regards to the 700 Palmetto, that 80 feet is actually right in front of San Francisco RV Park. And the material of the existing sewer line is actually made out of clay pipe, or VCP, vitrified clay pipe.
Did we lose
I think,
Director Sun?
you see, I always think it's my computer that's doing that, and everybody else is hearing him fine. So I do believe that Deputy Director Sun is frozen.
There he
Okay,
is.
there you go. Now you're back.
We lost
I
you.
apologize. I'll start over.
Okay, we lost you right after clay pipe.
And I was saying clay pipe is actually really good it's corrosion resistant, but clay pipe is rigid and is not flexible, and it does not do well and in terms of withstanding ground movement. As I mentioned earlier, the 80 feet of the damaged pipe is actually right in front of San Francisco RV Park. So we don't really know what's the cause until we dig it up and investigate. But there's a lot of potential factors such as shifting soil or perhaps heavy traffic, RV traffic, during all these years that could have caused the sagging in the sewer line. So we plan on repair the 80 feet, and we're going to replace the clay pipe with HDPE. That's high density polyurethane pipe, plastic material, which is going to be more flexible and it's going to last even longer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does that satisfy your question, Councilmember Big Stick?
Works for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with regard to item 4, the clarifying question, I believe, is, are the funds where and are the funds invested, and if so, where? I believe was the question. Am I right about that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Just a good question around affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Fund.
Yeah, I will answer that, and then if I will also check with our Chief Financial Sustainability Officer, who couldn't attend the meeting tonight because she's on vacation, and confirm. But generally, all of the city's funds are invested in the local agency investment fund. So that would include balances such as the funds that we have in the housing in lieu fund, which I think is what if I understood the question correctly, that's what that's about. And the LAIF, as it's called, the local agency investment fund, is how most cities' funds are invested throughout the state.
Kevin, I think the question was, why isn't it listed? Like, why isn't the in lieu funds listed in the report? If I heard the question correctly.
If I let me glance at the report here. So you would see the different balances. I mean, this is not a line by line report. This is the aggregate amount, and you see the 7.649 million in LAIF. So it would be in that amount.
Thank you.
Okay. Having pulled items 2 and 8, is there a motion regarding the remainder of the consent calendar?
So moved for approval.
And Councilmember Big Stick, are you seconding?
I am seconding.
City Clerk Coffee?
So for items on the consent calendar, except for items number 2 and number 8, which have been pulled, a motion by Councilmember O'Neill and a second by Councilmember Big Stick. Do the roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And consent minus items 2 and 8 passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Before we continue with items 2 and 8, I want to double check with the city attorney about our process. We've already had a public comment on consent item 2. Will we proceed with our count? Will we have public comment on the item first?
You've already had public comment on item 8.
It's item 2 we're talking about.
We had a public comment on item 2.
No, we haven't had public comment on item 2. So I would suggest we open up to public comment on item 2, and then council can proceed with deliberations on both 2 and 8.
Okay. I think our first speaker, Mr. Montemayor can correct me, but I think our first speaker, Summer Lee, did speak on this item. Am I correct?
I believe so, but I'm not.
Mayor Beckmeyer, I heard Summer Lee commenting on item number 8.
Okay, so now we'll open public comment for item 2. Do we have any hands raised for item 2?
I'm seeing 2 hands raised now. Our first speaker will be Dina Verby, followed by Christine Bowles. Dina, you may now unmute yourself.
Thank you. Dinah Verby here. Thank you all for your time. I just was able to read the minutes for the first time this afternoon for the last council meeting, and particularly the part that concerned the Ohlone Point Lot 3 appeal. And I noticed several errors throughout the reporting and the minutes. And I did submit, I hope it all got to you all. I did submit my request for written corrections to the minutes with regard to the portions that were part of my comments. In particular, some of them were just sort of minor errors, but in particular, there was a whole section that was excluded, just omitted completely, that I'm asking to be put in there. And because it pertains to the lengthy discussion we had at the end about the new hardship exception to the lead gold condition of approval. And I think it's really important to have those comments in the record. So if you need me now to go through and read them all, I hope I don't have to, because I did submit them in writing. And if you could give me an indication of whether you received those, that would be helpful. Otherwise, if you want me to go through them all now, I will. Are you allowed to respond to me now?
We are not.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna trust that you got that. I know I sent them to Sarah and I sent them to the public comment thing. And I know that there were other comments that Christine Bowles had that were also left out of the minutes. And so it's really important for all of that to be in there. So thank you.
Thank you, Dinah. Thank you, Dinah. Our next speaker is Christine Bowles. Christine, you may now unmute yourself.
Good evening again, council and staff. So as Dinah said, I too have just read the minutes and the agenda today. I'm actually on vacation myself with limited access to internet. But I did note several inaccuracies in both my speaking and my husband, Bob Bowles's, and more importantly, omission of most of my comments during the appeal presentation about the Hillside Preservation District ordinance on the calculations required for coverage and disturbance, the non-compliance of the project at Lot 3 that we were reviewing and that we had subsequently working with the owner negotiated to modify. But those are particularly important to be in the record as an understanding of the work that was accomplished and the changes to the design that was eventually approved by you all, and also important in the record for future projects too that need to be reviewed by this ordinance. I've now reviewed 3 projects that did not comply with the HPD ordinance that were just approved in the last 2 years. And it's really critical that this information be presented and documented clearly. And so again, I sent you all the comments in written form, and I don't know what the process is. I'm hoping that the minutes can be amended and re-reviewed by council and us as the public at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Mayor Beckmeyer, I'm not seeing any more hands raised at this time.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll close public comment on item 2 and bring it back to council. Councilmember Big Stick, you pulled the item. Did you want to make comments and start the discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. And we received enough email feedback about the desire to adjust some of the minutes that I thought it bore having that further discussion. And I think what I need right now is a little bit of guidance from city staff in terms of what would be appropriate in terms of amending minutes. I know that usually minutes are not to be considered a verbatim record, and so that mitigates the direction I might go in, but I'd like some elaboration on what might be an appropriate way to help the public feel a bit more heard in this instance.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Big Stick, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. And let me start to kind of frame the context for minutes, and then Assistant City Attorney Bizzano can chime in, as well as City Clerk Coffey. The first point is what you did mention, is that the city doesn't provide verbatim minutes, but provides summary minutes. Now, the council has options here. What is being requested is information that's already part of the record, because it's in the audio recording and the video recording, as well as documentation that was submitted as part of the appeal hearings. So in terms of adding additional verbatim comments that were made, that would be a pretty unusual step for the city to revise minutes based on that, because it's already part of the record. If there are corrections about inaccuracies of language, and one of the speakers talked about some pretty minor corrections, one of the options for the council is to direct staff to continue this item and direct staff to go back and compare the minutes against the actual record to verify whether those corrections are accurate, and to correct any inaccuracies. So in terms of correcting accuracies, that's an option for the council. Again, we don't keep verbatim minutes. They're summary minutes. Actually, best practices for cities are to keep action minutes, and we do much more than that at a time-consuming and staff-intensive cost. But to add more verbatim stuff would be unusual. But if council is concerned about some of the potential inaccuracies, then the option for the council would be to continue this item to the next meeting, and staff would go back and do the work to compare corrections against the actual record. We're not prepared to do that tonight. Some of those comments came in just this afternoon before the 4 o'clock deadline. Others of the comments came in at, I believe, 5:30, and staff has not reviewed those comments. We have not had time to review those comments. So that frames the context for options for the council. And I'll ask Assistant City Attorney Bizzano if she has anything she'd like to add.
I would just add that City Manager Woodhouse is correct that the city's typical practice is to provide a summary of the proceedings. And that's what happened in this case. Staff has prepared a summary of the proceedings for council's approval. From time to time, council members may have edits that they want to make to the minutes, and usually it's very minor typographical issues, and that can be done on the fly. But in this case, substantive edits have been proposed, and as Manager Woodhouse has mentioned, staff would need to review those to make sure that what is being proposed is appropriate, and in terms of the typographical changes or the minor edits that would be made.
Ask a question. So is it Clerk Coffey, does she actually have to transcribe the recordings? Is that how that works? Or does it, like, how does it work?
Mayor Pro Tem Beer, we do have a transcriptionist that transcribes minutes, and those the transcribed minutes are provided to me for in draft format for review. And then I prepare the draft minutes for inclusion in the council agenda.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the answer.
Well,
Other comments or questions from council members on this item?
okay, the corrections or comments that I received the comments, however, I didn't get them till, after staff did. And so I haven't had that time to review them at all. So I don't feel comfortable making official record of the city council meeting without verification. So I would make a motion to have staff verify all the amendments that the public wishes to have and come back to us to vote next time.
I'll second.
And I have a question before we vote, if I may.
Please go ahead.
I actually noticed that some of my comments during oral communications, and I grant whomever had the misfortune of listening to them, they were far longer than they normally would be. But if my comments during oral communications could also be reviewed against the public record, I'd appreciate it. And I can go into what I'm referring to if you'd like, but I don't see a need if it's going to be gone back into anyway.
So Mayor Beckmeyer, if I can, if I may.
Please. Yes.
So these are summary minutes. So they're not going to include every word for word discussion that was had at the hearing.
The point is taken. There's the phrasing itself, it leads one to suspect that something happened. So I'll just go ahead and read it so that you can see what I'm talking about. It says he plastered a photo of his little niece on an oxygen because she had contracted COVID. Specifically, I was talking about not plastering the picture up because I thought it might be in bad taste to do so. And so it says she makes his point when to get vaccinated, or no. I apologize. Again, anyway, that section.
Perhaps.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just that bit there about that I put a picture that I didn't have, and it's different than what actually happened. So that concerned me when I read it. So if that could be just that minor adjustment, it would be more comfortable for me. Thank you.
Sue Bartolos had her hand up.
Yes.
Well, Kevin, you want to speak first?
I was just going to make sure to, before the council votes on the item, to get clarity on the motion as to whether staff will be reviewing for inaccuracies, or because numerous of the requests from the speakers are to include verbatim comments in the minutes. And those are not inaccuracies, again, because these are summary minutes. They're just wanting the verbatim comments that are already part of the record to be in the minutes. So there's sort of two different things being asked that I want to make sure I get clear direction from the council regarding.
So that's a question for the maker of the motion and the person who seconded it. Michael, Councilmember O'Neill?
Yeah, I would look at any inaccuracies or if there's some sort of substantive difference, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Not, we've been doing summary minutes for all the commissions and committees that I can recall for years, decades maybe. So I would urge us just to kind of do what you have, look for any inaccuracies from what the public is asking to amend and correct them in the official minutes.
Councilmember Vaterlas.
Okay, so as City Manager Woodhouse said, these items, it's verbal. We have recordings of the minutes of the whole meeting. We have comments from the public, which are made part of the meeting. Now, Councilmember Big Stick's item, maybe we pass this and just eliminate that section because they are summaries. If we're going to do word for word minutes every single week, it's not even possible. So it's just not going to, I mean, is this going to happen every week that we have to go over each and every word in the actual transcription of the meeting? Their summary, their summary, their summary. So I think we could pass this and eliminate the section in Councilmember Big Stick's discussion and add the items for part of the public record.
Well, there's already a motion on
Already
the floor
is.
with a second, so it needs to be this second. The seconder of the motion, I believe, was Mary, if I remember.
It was,
correctly.
yeah, it was me.
She
yeah.
has to agree to my amendment, and then if it votes down, then we go to you.
So, I mean, I've never seen this happen before, where someone from the public is really passionate about having their comments verbatim in the written record. And so I thought that was what was in the motion, was actually to review that and to add in those verbatim comments. So what do I do now? So
You withdraw your
excuse
second.
me,
Okay.
excuse me, yeah, because I want to make sure that is not the motion I heard Councilmember O'Neill make. So you're withdrawing your second.
I'll withdraw my second. I've never
Okay.
done that before.
So there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Councilmember O'Neill, would you mind restating your motion one more time for me, please?
Keep the summary notes as we have done for decades, but have staff review the tape to be sure that there's no inaccuracies from what the public is saying they said, and you know what I mean, correct that, and then bring it back for approval or disapproval at the next meeting.
I will second your motion.
Any further discussion? Council, City Attorney Bazzano, please go ahead.
Just to clarify, this is a motion to continue with direction to staff to review the minutes, correct the inaccuracies, and bring it back for further council review.
Well, if inaccuracies, if any.
If any.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I still would like to keep the summary minutes. I mean, we've been doing that for decades.
Understood.
Okay. Anything further? No. Seeing none. City Clerk Coffey.
I have the motion by Councilmember O'Neill and the second by Councilmember Big Stick. For the roll call vote, Councilmember Big Stick,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos,
No.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
I'm also gonna vote no.
and Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And the motion passes with a vote of 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
Very well. Let's move on to item 8. We have had public comment on this item. As a process point, City Attorney, when that comment was made, it wasn't known to the public that the item was going to be pulled by a council member. Does that constitute an opportunity for the public to comment further? Not the same person, obviously, but if there was someone else in the audience that wished to comment, is it appropriate to open public comment again, or have we already done that for item 8?
We've already opened the item for public comment, so I think we've satisfied our requirements under the Brown Act.
Very well. Thank you for clarifying that. All right, then, council, I've forgotten who pulled it. Councilmember Big Stick?
Yeah, I pulled it.
Okay.
I definitely like a staff report, and you know, my understanding of this item is essentially we're authorizing that the master plan can go forward, and after that, I'm not quite sure what level of public engagement will be happening. Clearly, there's a chunk of the public who have interest in engaging and giving feedback, so I would like to hear a staff report and see if there's going to be opportunity for public to give a little bit more input. Thank you.
Will that be Deputy Director Bautista or Deputy Director Sun?
That would be me. Good evening, Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council members, Sam Bautista, your Deputy Director of Public Works, Engineering and Field Services. So tonight's item is the update to a 2012 storm drain master plan. So the item before you is to update the current master plan, and Associate Civil Engineer Lawrence Enriquez is the project manager on this project, and he will give you a very brief presentation regarding the 2022 storm drainage master plan.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and City Manager. I'm Lawrence Enriquez, Public Works Associate Civil Engineer. I'm glad I have the opportunity to use a few slides that we prepared for you. So next slide, please, Sarah. So the purpose is we're updating the storm drainage master plan that was done and completed back in 2012. We're going to be addressing new and emerging concerns, and I'll be talking about that in the next slide. We're going to use it as a planning guide for maintaining, improving, and expanding the city's storm drainage system. We're going to be identifying capital improvement projects and stormwater funding options. And that's something that is a little unique in comparison to 2012 storm drainage master plan. Next slide, please, Sarah. So we're going to be focusing on target areas that basically is going to give us a comprehensive storm drainage master plan. We're going to be looking at Monterey Road, Big Inch Creek, as was commented during the public comment phase. We're going to be looking at Valimar area, Rockaway Beach Avenue, Lindemar Boulevard and the surrounding neighborhoods there, and Pedro Point. And in each of those neighborhoods, we're going to be looking at an overall comprehensive plan. So there's going to be not only a citywide comprehensive, but also neighborhood community comprehensive plan, as opposed to just targeting certain problem areas. Next slide, please, Sarah. Our project schedule is slated to begin next month, September 2021, and it's going to take approximately, till next summer, July, August 2022 to complete it. During that process, we're going to be reviewing a draft master plan that will be submitted to us during the summer of 2022. And once again, I want to say that what makes this master plan unique from 2012 is the fact that we will be targeting specific areas that we have heard concerns from the communities. And secondly, we're going to be using a ranking system. We are going to rank all the problem areas and come out with projects, and then we're going to rank them low, medium to high. So we're going to have a priority list, and then we're going to have council provide us input as to what areas council would like us to proceed into construction. And thirdly, what makes this master plan unique is the fact that we're going to be having the consultant provide us with funding options. And so the funding options will be to use for construction and moving into the construction phase. And I'm free to answer any questions that council or anybody else may have.
Council members, if you'd indulge me, if you could please take a look at the packet, page 234. Lawrence, and can you compare that table with the dates and the projected? I realize it's early because we're just starting with what you presented in your slide, and see if there's any if there's updates that maybe we would be making to that plan? Because I think I heard you say it would be June of 22.
Yeah, it would be summer of 2022, Mayor Beckmeyer. The dates there are approximate, but
Right.
it shouldn't take more than that. Then we should be finished by summer of 2022 for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Summer.
You're welcome.
So,
Other, please, Councilmember Big Stick, question?
Mr. Enriquez, do you want to finish a thought before I ask another question?
so that was me.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
So we heard your question earlier about how would we, get some public engagement out there, and that was one of the questions that I heard. And one of the things that we would do is usually during these master planning activities, we let the consultant do their thing, and they, go out and gather the data and make the analysis, and the perfect time to get any kind of public engagement is, as Lauren said, during the draft, the first that draft that should be coming out in around May and or June. So that would help. That would help bring public engagement or get the community engaged with the project. In addition, we would also be able to, bring this during the different phases or during the different months to come back to council and just give you an update with what's going on with the master plan. So those are times that we can engage with you as well as the community. In terms of another question that I heard earlier, regarding the Monterey Road Big Inch area, so Ms. Bowles had stated that there's going to be another El Nino dry year. However, our consultants have access to historical data, such as the rainfalls of 2016, which were very, very heavy rain. So the consultant can actually, model the area with intense rainfall events. So they can look at our existing system and model the system to see how the system works. If there's bottlenecks or what the flows are in the creek. So they would be able to determine all the results from just the modeling, and from there they can make recommendations for what types of improvements need to be done in those areas. So we are definitely going to have the consultant thoroughly investigate those priority areas. So we heard the community, and we know that these are priority areas that we'd like to start with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman.
That addresses most of my question for the most part, and it was well taken and heartening to hear that very specifically you're going to be targeting Monterey Road and Big Inch Creek. And off the top of my head, if I were to think of other places I'd want to know, that would be Rockaway Beach Avenue and Pedro Point. So my personal list of top spots is on yours already, and that's really heartening to know. My last follow-up to community concern, I suppose, is, my own personal list notwithstanding, if there was, say, a community concern that I wasn't currently aware of that certainly needed to be investigated, is it, given the process between October and April, is it too late by the draft period for one of the community members to say, hey, by the way, we have this big concern over here that you had no idea about? Or if that were to come through as late as May, June, when we start to discuss draft, is that not too late? Could that then be incorporated after the fact?
There could be always addendums to the master plan or additions to, if those come up late. But of course, we hope that our consultant finds those problem areas during the process of doing their investigations and analysis throughout the city.
Thank you very much.
And it sounded as though you were offering to have some kind of mid-project update to council, which would also provide council members an opportunity to ask questions as well as the public to be aware of where we are with the project at that stage. Is that correct?
Yes, and that the best form would be probably a study session, just so that everybody can be involved, so that the whole community can be involved.
That makes sense to me.
That makes sense to me too. One thing I heard from the community was that they wanted an urgent, something urgently specific for their section of the community. And I know that the other sections of the community also feel the same way. And so by covering these areas, we're going to address all of those things. And I just wanted to make that real clear. Thanks a lot, Sam, for your input.
All right, council, anything further?
I'll move to approve item number 8 on consent.
Second.
Item number 8, moved to approve by Councilmember Big Stick and seconded by Councilmember Vaterlas. Roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlas.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And item number 8 passes with a vote of 5-0.
Wonderful. Okay, back to the agenda. Now we are done with the consent items. That brings us to oral communications. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the City Council on any issue that is not on the agenda. Any person wishing to address the council shall be recognized by the mayor during oral communications, provided, however, that during the oral communications portion of the agenda, only items not on the agenda for that meeting may be addressed. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. Council members shall not enter into debate with speakers under oral communications. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be allowed for any speaker. Pursuant to Pacifica Municipal Code Title 2, Chapter 1, Section 2-1.118, any person making impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the council shall be called to order by the presiding officer, and if such conduct continues, may, at the discretion of the presiding officer, be ordered barred from further audience before the council during that meeting. Okay, so let us go to public comment. Mr. Montemayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is Margaret Goodale, followed by Christine Bowles. Margaret, you may now unmute yourself.
All right, good evening, council. This is Margaret Goodale. I have 2 concerns. First, I'd like to talk about heritage trees. With the proposed development at the south edge of Lindemar, I've been watching the arborist reports very carefully. The earliest report identified 92 toyons to be removed, and many were flagged as heritage trees. Recently, both the heritage tree designation and a third of those toyons have been removed. I'm asking the contract arborist the reason for this change. But do you know, all of you, that Monterey pines can reach heritage size in just 25 years? Toyons, however, grow much more slowly, but can live 200 to 300 years. And the toyons that met the specifications for multi-stem heritage trees were on Pacifica's hills long before any pines were planted here, and reflect the true heritage of the area. Checking the municipal code about heritage trees, I see a surprising version August 12th, 2021, parentheses current. That apparently changed just a week ago and is way, way ahead of what the contractor presented as a timeline. Did you vote to approve this already? Although the city webpage offers comparisons to previous versions, nothing appears when I try the links. If multi-stem trees are excluded from any protection, our native toyons, our willows, our hazelnuts will receive no consideration. And these are the most valuable for soil stabilization, for limiting wildfires, and for recovery from wildfires, and of course to wildlife. Many of our toyons could well have been here in 1769 when Gaspar de Portola came over the mountain. The people of Puristat could have roasted and eaten the berries of the trees that are here today. As you redraft the heritage tree ordinance, please add the toyons, which truly are part of our heritage. If the definition is a problem, fix it. Second concern is this Saturday's dog surfing contest. I'm going to ask please to give help to the rangers this coming Saturday. They will need help enforcing the leash law during the surfing contest. Our plovers are severely stressed by events like this, and extra help to protect them and keep people following laws that are on the books would be very, very much appreciated. Two things, heritage trees, dog leash. Thanks so much. Good night.
Thank you, Margaret. Our last speaker is Christine Bowles. You may now unmute yourself.
Good evening again, Council. This is Christine Bowles. I'm really puzzled by your processes for pulling items from the agenda, and I would like to get some clarification. I specifically asked to pull item 8 that I had some other comments that I didn't have time to make. And I've seen this before, where staff will present a report that gives some more information that hopefully answer some of our questions, but we might have additional questions as the public. And we're not given an opportunity to ask those questions. I mean, you say everywhere that you're focused in your goals on having an engaged community, and this just seems like another way that you block out any meaningful public input on these items. On that particular item, I will follow up and send an email with all the details to Public Works. But again, the council summary report was an error, and so you're not being given the correct information. Secondly, I noticed that their report also mentioned that they were going to be consulting the general plan, and I would like to, for the record, remind you that the general plan from 1980 is not up to date for flooding. Those updates to the safety element were required as part of the 2015 housing element update, and the general plan is out of compliance with state law. So it's not very helpful to be reviewing to the 1980 general plan, which brings me to the question of what is happening with our general plan. I'm not hearing any information from planning or from council members with any timeline. Originally, the general plan was supposed to get public input in the summer. The summer is almost done. I was speaking with a member of the Fish and Wildlife for the state organization, and they have not even yet seen the draft EIR. They are very concerned because Pacifica has a very special biome that is not properly addressed in our current general plan. And they are very interested in providing input first in the EIR, which is a process that takes comments, revisions, review again. It could be 6 months before the EIR is certified, much less the revisions made to the general plan. I'm really concerned that we keep reviewing projects in hazardous zones with an out of date and out of compliance safety element. There's one coming up again that's requiring variances from HPD on 100% slope on Talbot. We need to update these plans or stop approving projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I'm seeing no more hands raised at this time, Mayor McMurray.
Very well, then we'll close public comment, oral communications, and bring it to council for council communications. Councilmember Big Stick.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, to the best of my knowledge, dog surfing isn't happening this year, and also if during staff communications you could comment on the timeline of the general plan EIR, I'd be appreciative. In lieu of my economic development commentary encouraging people to our businesses, I got to enjoy lunch at La Playa this last cycle with Menlo Park Council Member Ray Mueller, so it was charming to host somebody from outside Pacifica at a local eatery and enjoyed La Playa accordingly. I had a very nice bowl of tortilla soup, and he had a wonderful shrimp burrito, if I recall. I received a Rising Sun kit. I saw this in the Connect with Pacifica newsletter. The idea is you fill out this survey and they send you 100% free, like cool stuff to upgrade your house to be more energy efficient and save you a little bit of money. So in my pack, I got 12 light bulbs, 12 LED globe light bulbs, 4 LED floodlight bulbs, one tier 2 advanced power strip, low flow shower head, low flow sink aerators, 2 toilet leak detection dye tablets, and a night light, all 100% free. I went to risingsunopp.org/program/GHC. So if you go to risingsunopp.org, you can find this. If you want specifically, it's /program/GHC. So I recommend this. It's a really cool program going on for free. Attended the EDC meeting. I attended Toastmasters on the 12th of the month. It's a public speaking club in town. So if you're interested in public speaking, check out Toastmasters. Very cool. I got to enjoy the Cope banquet hosted by the San Mateo County Central Labor Council, honoring Raina Lehman. That was a wonderful evening. I was liaisoning the emergency preparedness meeting on the 16th. North Coast Fire Authority gave a special presentation on grants for wildfire preparedness. It was reminded to me then that we have COVID testing going on every Sunday at the parking lot at Francisco and Salada from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the next emergency preparedness meeting will be on the 15th. I reached out to Redwood City Council member to learn about their safe parking program, and so enjoyed a tour of that site. There was a PCT 26 support meeting as they're trying to figure out how to save their space. And friendly reminder, please consult your doctors about vaccination if you haven't done so already, and please stay masked for the safety of those around you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bauderlas.
Okay, I attended the San Mateo County COVID briefing, and I would like to say that Pacifica is up. We're at 84.3% vaccinated. The count, excuse me, the county is at 92.8% for single vaccinations and 89.2% for both vaccinations. One of the most interesting things that I did read was that 3,394 children under 9 have tested positive for COVID. I think that's a huge number out of the total 47,000. So I want people to be careful with the children, especially under 9 who cannot get vaccinated yet. The highest positive age group, of course, is 20 to 40. And that's almost double of everybody else. There are quite a few people in the hospital. When I checked on the there were only 6 ICU beds left. So keep on top of the vaccines, please. I attended the employee lunch community center, which was nice to see the employees moved and in person. The San Mateo County Economic Recovery meeting, I met with Jackie Spear and we talked about the extension of the moratorium on eviction. I went to the PCT meeting. I attended many citywide garage sales. Thank you to Vicki Moore of Pacifica Locals for putting that together. 60 homes participated in the citywide garage sale. And we went around to talk to different people and people were pretty enthusiastic about it and would love to do it again. I went to the mural unveiling and that was just spectacular. The mural and these 2 young women who painted it, just amazing. There was something, I went out and met with Golden Gate National Recreation and San Francisco Park and Rec regarding the memorial at Maury Point. And they were originally going to give 2 weeks and then they gave about 6 weeks to take everything down. And unfortunately, some vandals went out over the weekend and did damage to many, many things in that memorial. So it's already been at least half removed. And they would like if people could send a letter gently asking if a memorial bench could be placed there. No rudeness though. So, and I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
We have an echo. Are you hearing the echo too, or is it just on my side?
I'm not hearing it.
I think it's better now. Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. Let's see. What did I do? I also went to the mural unveiling, so I want to take a moment and thank Annie Phillips and Lauren Wu for their amazing, amazing work that they did on this mural. And I want to thank everybody in the beautification committee and the mural subcommittee, specifically Cindy Abbott and Lynn Adams for helping these 2 young women do such an amazing project. So I was proud to help them through it, and everybody go check out the mural. It's amazing. I went to the Open Space Committee meeting on the 18th, and we also talked about the memorial at Maury Point. We talked about the monument up at Sweeney Ridge that needs to be repaired. And also they're going to be requesting a study session to look at a renewed chapter, do some reorganization of the Open Space Committee. And so we look forward to those conversations. I followed Mike O'Neill's suggestion, and I've started to reach out to council members and city officials up and down the coast to learn about how they're handling the influx of people and cars and into the neighborhoods. So thanks, Mike, for that suggestion. I started sending out some emails and some letters so we can get those conversations started. I attended the Housing Our People Effectively Interagency Council meeting. It's where a lot of people from the county get together to share information about all the projects and programs that are going on in our county related to homelessness. I met with several constituents, some from Fairway, who are concerned about oversized vehicles. I met with someone from Rockaway who was concerned about the stream going down the street. And then I talked with someone from Valleymar who is really concerned about the uptake of Airbnbs in her neighborhood. So evidently there's more than there was before, and it's pretty obvious that this might be something we want to talk about. I know Aaron Macias had brought it up at a meeting not too long ago, so I think I would like to get some information about how many short-term rentals there are and how it's affecting our housing supply. And then I will just tell you a little story. I have authorization from my friend to tell this story. It's a housing story. A very good friend of mine became homeless. He was a Pacifica resident. He, not living in Pacifica now. Anyway, became homeless, was living in his truck. And I let him know about the shower program at PRC. So he went down, got into the shower program, and then got connected to resources through PRC and got sent to the rapid rehousing program through the county. And so over the course of about 7.5 to 8 months, he was placed into a shelter, which is one of the hotels in Redwood City. And tomorrow he gets to his apartment. So I just want you to know that it works. And the more stories that we have, the more people can realize that if you really, really want to get help, the help is there and that the process works. And so I want to thank PRC for having the shower program, because if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have gotten connected at all. So thank you, PRC, and I'm done.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
First off, I wanted to apologize. I've been floating in and out of the meeting because for some reason it just shuts down, and then it said my microphone wasn't working, and you know what politician doesn't want his microphone working, right? So anyhow, so if I'm floating in and out, I'll just try to sign right back on. I also wanted to second Mary Beer's comments about Airbnbs and the proliferation that I think I would like to have some sort of information on limiting how many we can have in town or something, because you know, I did hear rumors about that guy, and actually somebody gave me the address of the guy that turned an entire apartment building into Airbnbs. Now it was 6 units that were taken off the living market and put into the Airbnb. Plus the guy is now running a hotel in a residential district, okay, with 6 units. I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting. I also attended the PCT meeting. And in my role as on the board of the Jefferson High School District Employee Housing, I attended several of those meetings with more coming up. We're writing the rules, the eligibility, et cetera for that. So that could have potentially at some point be a model for the Pacifica School District's employee housing that they're trying to get back in Odstead. I'd like to thank Public Works for all the streets that are paved in South Pacifica. I was driving around and I saw quite a few of them are paved, and I see they've moved all the trucks from Odstead School, and then they even paved the lot at Odstead School. So I'd like to thank them. It looks good. My street looks nice. It's been 52 years. That's what the neighbor who's the original owner told me. It was 52 years since this street's been paved. So I just wanted to thank Public Works for that. And if Lisa can, or Lewis, I don't see Lisa on here. I don't see a Lisa Square. If they can pass that on to their staff, I'd appreciate that. And that's pretty much it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I attended many of the same events as my co-council members, so I won't go into detail on those, other than to say, going back to Councilmember Vaterloss's comments about the August 10th County Manager's briefing on COVID. I did want to share some statements made by Dr. Murrow, who is our health officer. COVID is not over. We wish it was, but it is not. It is confusing and stressful, but the sky is not falling. He identified 5 large population dynamics that are at play in why we're seeing our cases going up. And I won't go into all the details, but reopening really had a lot to do with it in the summer, right? We had that reopening, and the fact that vaccines are not perfect, I personally will say I've had to come to grips with my own assumption that I have been vaccinated. I have like a Teflon shield around me, and I don't. And the fact of the number of breakthrough cases that we see just serves to reinforce that. So the other piece that he pointed out is the Delta variant has significantly different characteristics, such as increased transmissibility. So that's something to factor in. And it's just important, I think, for everyone to stay vigilant. I think that's the hardest part. We had a little while where we kind of we could relax, or so we thought. And then Delta came along. So I think, one thing I will say about masking, and this ties into children, as Councilmember Batterlast mentioned, very young people being tested and having positive COVID tests. School just started. Pacifica schools started on the 18th, and I work at Cabrillo School. Don't give up your day job, and I would never. And I am so thrilled to tell you how masking is not a thing. It's just not an issue at school. The students are masked. They're very consistent about it. It's lunchtime. Of course, you take your mask down to eat your lunch. They're having masks on the playground. It's amazing. It's really, and even the first day, lots of parents on campus. I actually saw one person without a mask who went, oh, I forgot. And luckily we of course have extras at the office. So that was, a hopeful sign for me. So that's my thing about that. The employee lunch, the reference to that is our beautiful job that staff have done on moving city hall employees, planning employees, and parks, beaches, and recreation employees into spaces in the community center. And it was an opportunity to celebrate that and to give, frankly, this council member a tour. It was the first opportunity I'd had to really see what we've been talking about and seeing on blueprints and on posters, what it really looks like. And it was so impressive. There has been much commentary about why are we spending money on the furniture and this and that. Is that wasted? Absolutely not. It's useful, beneficial, modular furniture that will be employed in the new building when it's completed. So the new buildings. So just a grand job was done by everyone in getting that place set up. And I'm so pleased to see. And I toured with Beth Phipps, who showed me all the spaces where the seniors will be continuing to congregate, continuing to have their programming as they do. The computer lab is intact. The main congregant lunch room, even though they still have to do bag lunches, the pickup, I forgot what it's called, but where people pick up their lunch, they'll be able to now go and sit down inside and eat their lunch together. And this is all after the beginning of September. So it's beautiful, and I'm thrilled to see how well it all went. Coke Banquet is a wonderful opportunity to connect with labor leaders and with elected officials in the county. So I attended as well with Councilmember Big Stick, and I thought it was a great evening, and it was very inspirational. The mural unveiling, I just want to say this about it. It was super exciting to actually be able to cut a ribbon, because it is, after all, almost the end of August. And with being a mayor during COVID, there just aren't a lot. There have been some, and I was out of town for a couple of them, but there just aren't a lot. Now, I would stack up my record against Sue Vatterloss's record. I think sometimes she cut 3 ribbons in a day. I'm just saying. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. So it was just, that's kind of a joke. It was amazing, inspirational. And I really just have to take 1 second to thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mary Beer, for your guidance and shepherding those young women through the process. When we were early on, after the very first meeting in March, after Lynn Adams brought this to us, the very first phone call after we got off the Zoom, as I said, Mary, will you work with them? Will you help guide them? And she said, yes, absolutely. And it worked brilliantly. Thank you to our volunteers on Beautification Advisory, on the mural subcommittee, and our staff. Everybody pulled together to get this done. It's miraculous that it started in March and ended in August in the same year. And that's just phenomenal. So I can't say enough about it. If you haven't seen the mural, please go where the overcrossing is, the most beautiful overcrossing in California, from the west part of Sharp Park to the east part that goes right there by Eureka Square. If you were to cross over, it's immediately on your left and you can't miss it, and it's beautiful. So that's really all I have. School has begun. Please be safe. Take an extra minute before you drive to work, and please be patient with the traffic that is building up in the mornings. We're all doing the best we can. Thank you.
Sue Vardalos has her hand up.
Yes, Sue Vardalos, please go ahead.
Sorry, and I did cut the ribbon for that beautiful overcrossing.
Oh, that's
See?
right. I remember that.
And the Taco Bell Cantina.
I remember that.
Anyway, I went to the Flood Sea Level Rise Committee today. So I forgot that because it was right before this meeting. Their name is now One Shoreline. And the biggest thing they talked about was the civil grand jury has given out 13 items that they would like people to do, and it was related to sea level rise. This committee also is related to storm drains and flooding. So they're going to add some of that in. But each city will need to respond to 5 questions in the grand jury report. And the One Shoreline group is going to help out. And also at Council of Cities, which is for council members and staff, they are going to speak on Friday night. One Shoreline will be there and talk about the flood sea level rise issues that are happening in the entire county. So I'm sorry, I forgot that one, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. All right, let's have our staff report from City Manager Woodhouse.
Great, thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer, Mayor Pro Tem Beer, and City Council members. Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. There were numerous questions from council members, so I'll respond to those, and then I just had one additional item I wanted to mention. First, to the question about the dog surfing contest, the in-person event was canceled by the organizer, citing concerns about Delta variant. And so the Plovers will be happy, and the in-person event is not happening. There is some sort of virtual event that I believe is happening. I don't know the details about that, but anybody who's interested, I'd refer them to the World Dog Surfing Contest website. I don't have that address in front of me, but information is on there. The civil grand jury report that Councilmember Vaterlos just mentioned, the city did receive that last week, or I believe maybe on Friday or over the weekend. I've lost track, I can't remember. But as is the process for civil grand jury reports, we will be reviewing and bringing to the council the city's responses to that report within the time frame that's required, which is 60 or 90 days, and then providing responses to the questions that are being asked. There was a question concerning the general plan schedule, I believe. And so we are sorting through and refining schedule and all of the priorities for this fiscal year, the council priorities for this fiscal year, which completing the general plan update is one of them, along with the Sharp Park specific plan, because the general plan update and the Sharp Park specific plan share an EIR together. So just to remind the council that in 2019, during this process, there were 5 community meetings held about the general plan. Input was received in August and September of 2019. There was a joint study session with Planning Commission and City Council. Input on the general plan. COVID happened, but working on incorporating all of those comments into the revised general plan and developing the EIR for release of that this fall. And the specific timeline for that, again, we're sorting through and refining, but the goal is the EIR will be released and the Shark Park specific plan and general plan. There'll be a public comment and review period, and then followed by hearings from the Planning Commission and the City Council for adoption. The last, I think those were all of the council questions. The last thing I just did want to mention, again, every September is Rancho Days at the Sanchez Adobe. And so that is scheduled for Saturday, September 18th, noon to 4 p.m. And what's different about this one, as the council members know, is that before COVID, the county and the San Mateo Historical Association were working on building the new interpretive center there and to do a ribbon cutting. COVID interfered with that. And so that launch and ribbon cutting and all the new exhibits and the millions of dollars that the county and the historical associations put into that is really going to be highlighted at the event on Saturday, September 18th. In the run up to that event, what I just wanted to remind the council about is pre-COVID, the city had donated money to the historical association to develop a commercial that will highlight Pacifica and Pacifica's attractions, as well as the Sanchez Adobe and the new interpretive center there. So the Historical Association is working with Comcast on developing that commercial with city staff input, and that will be running in the near future in the lead up to the September 18th event. So we're excited to see that and hope that serves as a good historical tourism promotion item for Pacifica. And then the event on Saturday is sure to be a good one. And that completes my comments.
All right, then. Thank you very much. We have 2 items for consideration tonight, and I would like to propose that we take a 5-minute break before we launch into items 9 and 10 on our agenda. So it is 8:34. Let's come back at 8:40. The subject is ARPA Business Assistance Allocation toward the San Mateo Strong Small Business Grant Program. The recommended action is moved to approve the city's contribution of $150,000 of the budgeted fiscal year 2021-22 American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, business assistance allocation to the San Mateo County Strong Fund to supplement the active SMC Strong Small Business Assistant Grant Program and provide additional assistance to Pacifica small businesses. Our staff contact is Yulia Carter, and I believe tonight our presentation is going to be from City Manager Kevin Woodhouse.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer, Mayor Pro Tem Beer, council members, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. As the council recalls, during the budget development process for this fiscal year's budget and the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the city received, one of the strategies the council approved was $150,000 as a starting point number for direct economic stimulus to small businesses in Pacifica. And the timing is fortuitous in that the county and San Mateo, SAMCETA, the San Mateo Economic Development Association, and the SMC Strong Fund, along with San Mateo Credit Union, has just released a new round of small business grants. So as a history to the various rounds that existed during COVID back in 2020, at the outset of the pandemic, was the initial round of $10,000 grants to businesses. The county funded 6 $10,000 grants to Pacifica businesses, and the city approved $50,000 extra to fund 5 more businesses. So 11 served in 2020. Earlier in 2021, the county came out with another round of funding focused on restaurants, breweries, and wineries. And that program, with county funding and not extra city augmentation to that funding, funded 9 Pacifica restaurants, breweries, or wineries. And yet we know from the application process that there were 22 or so that went unfunded. So we know there's businesses in Pacifica that applied for funding in that round and didn't get it. Now this round has come along. The county approved, it's in the report, but I forget if it's $3 million for this round. And we estimate that that will fund 12 Pacifica businesses. But if we add the 150,000 at 10,000 each, that's 15 more businesses for a total of 27 Pacifica businesses to receive assistance during this round of funding. And the criteria, there's a lot of information on the website, the SMC Strong Fund website, about all of the criteria and eligibility. But again, this is not just for restaurant type businesses, but it's for all types of small businesses to receive funding who haven't previously received assistance grants. And the one component of this recommendation is that the city doesn't have the resources to administer a grant giving program itself. So the vehicle of the SMC Strong Fund, as kind of proctored by the San Mateo Credit Union, is a very appropriate vehicle. And they've worked in each kind of successive round of funding. They've worked to make the process as simple as possible for businesses. And the recommendation is to, apply our ARPA funding to augment that funding and go ahead and try to help up to 27 businesses. We will be able to monitor with them how many businesses are applying and eligible. And so, we can report back to progress to the council in the event that there weren't 27 businesses that applied, or in the event that there were more than 27 that applied, and the council may want to consider a future tranche of funding to small businesses. I think I'll stop there with the summary and answer any questions. I do know that representatives from Samsita couldn't attend this meeting tonight, so we're just flying it alone without their kind of detailed input about the program. But if there are any questions about details about the program, I can follow up and provide that information.
You're on mute, Sue Beckmeyer.
I said, okay, great. Thank you very much. Councilmember O'Neill.
Question, from reading the staff report, I'm assuming that this is only for-profit businesses, not nonprofits. Am I correct?
That's correct. I perused the eligibility criteria, and I think that nonprofits are not eligible.
Okay, and then if you previously had gotten a grant from this, you're not eligible for another dip. So it will be 15 new businesses, new applicants that will get this money.
Correct. More than 15. I mean, 15 with our funding and an estimated 12 with the county approved funding. So 27 new businesses total.
Okay, and then will we be able to send some sort of notification out to all the businesses that this is happening and for them to apply?
Yes, and great question. We've already done that. We've sent that information out to all the businesses and also blasted it just generally on social media. I believe I also wrote about it in my Connect with Pacifica intro, encouraging people to let their favorite businesses know that this exists. I was in one of the local businesses and I did get a question about it, but they had previously received funding. So word's getting out, and the deadline for this round of funding, I believe, is September 7th. Yes, September 7th at 5 p.m.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Vaterlas?
I'm really happy to see that we are helping the small businesses who have hurt so much during COVID, and especially that this does go to businesses that have not previously received grant money. And I think that really makes a big difference for these small businesses. They did suffer a lot, and I'm thankful that we can thank them by doing this. Thank you. Sorry.
I have one more question. I just remembered.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So Kevin, I remember when we approved the budget that there was this money, but there still is some money that you're analyzing the rules from the ARPA funds to see what they are and how council could maybe invest money in, parklets or whatever we might, or the economic. You're shaking your head. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. The direct business grant piece was one. The other, I mean, it's a broad category. I can't remember and don't have it right in front of me. I apologize. What the sort of placeholder bucket of funding was, but other economic development related funding was identified, and such as how to market and attract to Pacifica. So that's what relates to parklet, or we talked about that specifically in the outdoor dining thing about funding contributions or grant program for parklets, but other kinds of vitalization and marketing things that could occur. So it's a pretty broad bucket that we can utilize other ARPA funds for. That's separate from this 150,000.
And once the regulations are clear and you've interpreted them correctly, we'll get a staff report later this year at some point, right? For council to discuss that.
Yeah, it'll be exactly as we kind of jump on each strategy to implement. The council will be involved in that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Any other immediate questions from council? All right, I'm not seeing any, so let's go to public comment on this item. Mr. Montemayor.
Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Makes it easy, and bring it back to council.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Okay, I'd like to move to approve the city contribution of $150,000 of budgeted FY 2021-22 American Rescue Plan Act Business Assistant allocation to the San Mateo County Strong Fund to supplement the active SMC Strong Small Business Assistant Grant Program and provide additional assistance to Pacifica small businesses.
Second.
Second.
And a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Beer and a second by Councilmember Vaterlas for item number 9. A roll call vote starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlas.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
And Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And item number 9 passes unanimously.
Very well, thank you very much. Moving on to item 10. The subject of item 10 is a letter of opposition to Senate Bill 9 regarding increased density in single-family zones. The recommended action is to consider and oppose unless amended position on Senate Bill 9 and direct the city manager to prepare a letter for the mayor to send transmitting the city's position. And again, we'll have City Manager Woodhouse, I think, unless, of course, it's going to be Assistant City Manager and Planning Director Tina Wermeister.
I'll kick it off. Thank you. I then turn it over to Assistant City Manager Wermeister for the actual presentation. What I just wanted to preface for this item is this was a late add to the agenda, and so staff didn't do a lot of analysis of SB 9, but a lot of analysis has already been done, and notably by other cities, and there's a summary report about the issues with SB 9 from the South San Francisco deliberation, City Council's deliberation. So that's attached to the packet. So I just wanted to preface that there's a lot of information in the report, and Cal Cities has also done that analysis. And if we get really into the nitty gritty of SB 9, we may not be able to answer questions about that. But I just wanted to offer that caveat. And but Assistant City Manager Wermeister often works her magic, so she may know all the answers. I'm not sure, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you.
Tina can't hear you. While Assistant City Manager Wermeister is fixing, and she may need to sign off and back on because that often corrects the problem. I'll go ahead and jump in and just start the summary. SB 9 by Atkins is a bill that requires cities and counties to ministerially approve without condition or discretion a housing development containing 2 residential units on an individual parcel in single-family zones. And it also requires ministerial approval without condition of an urban lot split, creating 2 independent lots that may be sold separately. So at a high level, one of the concerns and one of the reasons that Cal Cities, representing California cities, opposes this unless amended, is that it really takes away important local control in the sense of public engagement, local public engagement, and a solution or decisions about developments that are catered to the local jurisdiction. It's a typical one-size-fits-all solution that is the concern about your local decision making about housing issues in Pacifica. And Tina,
are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. When I came back on, City Manager Woodhouse was giving you some information on how this bill would reduce local control, but just a little information on what the bill actually does. It requires cities and counties to ministerially approve a housing development containing 2 residential units, essentially a duplex on an individual parcel in single-family zones. The bill also requires local governments to ministerially approve an urban lot split of residential property, creating 2 independent lots that may be sold separately from an existing single-family residential lot. And as the council is aware, but the public may not be, ministerial approval is often referred to as by right or over-the-counter approval. It essentially requires that the city approve a project if the standards are met. And SB 9 also reduces the amount of parking per unit that a jurisdiction can require. So numerous cities have opposed this bill, as well as Cal Cities, formerly known as the League of California Cities, unless amended. And some of those amendment requests have included clarifying that the 2 units that could be created under the bill does not mean that they can also create an additional accessory dwelling unit. So essentially have 3 units on the parcel. Some folks have requested that SB 9 units are restricted to affordable units. They are requesting that the developer acquire a building permit within a year to avoid speculation of just subdividing lots and then selling them, and then the homes never get built, which is the purpose of the bill, is to create more housing. To allow local governments to require adequate access for emergency services and emergency access. To not have this bill be applicable in very high fire hazard severity zones. To allow cities to have some discretion in what size lots this bill could apply to. Also discretion in certain conditions such as hillsides or natural hazards, hazardous areas that the local government would be in the best position to determine. To allow governments to continue to require certain parking standards. A clarification that these would count for RENA. I don't think that was in question as I read the bill, but I think they wanted a clarification on that. And then to have some sort of language written in the bill to prevent large-scale investors from exploiting this opportunity. So in our case, the council should note that the proposed measure would also require that the Coastal Act provisions be met, of course, but it would exempt these projects from a public hearing for a coastal development permit. So it would be more of a staff level coastal development permit. So the recommended action is that the council consider and oppose unless amended position on SB 9 and authorize the mayor to send a letter transmitting this position to the state legislature. Be happy to answer questions.
Sue Battle has her hand up.
Please go ahead.
In this, it says that all units in SB 9 must be affordable units. Well, what if I decided I wanted to turn my house into 3,000 square foot lots, but I wanted to live in one? Therefore, it wouldn't be considered as an affordable house for the affordable housing. It doesn't take the owner occupancy into consideration. So I thought that particular line, although I'm in favor of affordable housing, and the more affordable housing, the better, but in certain circumstances, it just wouldn't work, that they all be affordable.
Mhm. Right.
One question, or I'm not sure if that was a question, but what I did want to clarify process-wise is what's before the council is a recommendation about opposed unless amended, and then a list of suggested amendments. So the specific amendments that the council would want to suggest are up for discussion with the council. And as Councilmember Vaterlos just raised, perhaps there's discussion to be had about whether that requirement, which that requires the units to be affordable, is an amendment that the council would be interested in seeing.
I think an amendment, maybe that at least one of the units has to be affordable. Because she does make sense in terms of if the owner, like I have like a 12,000 square foot lot, right? I can divide this, but I would live in my house, and then the unit I build would be required to be affordable.
Through the mayor, I could suggest maybe some language in our letter, if the council wants to send it, stating something to the effect that any new units constructed are affordable. So clarifying, then maybe further clarifying that that's intended to be not for the existing unit, or something about that unless owner occupied, the units would be affordable.
Yeah, I like that because it's conceivable that the owner might want to move into if it's different construction, like let's say like a 2-story house, but now I want a 1-story house because I'm aging and don't want stairs anymore, something like that. So I think that concept of one unit be owner occupied might cover it. Do you agree, Sue?
Yes. Or one unit must be affordable, but yeah, not stating which one.
Okay. And I'm assuming when we say affordable, does that go, as we do all of our calculations based on area median income? The same as we do for RENA and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to make sure it's not like, oh, there's a new standard being invented or something. It seemed like.
Yes,
Sorry.
I would.
Council member Big Stick.
That would be what we would use.
Okay, Councilmember Big Stick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It occurred to me that we're very quickly entering into deliberation. And I know that I have questions about the various amendments specifically, but it seems like first we might need to give a collective direction that we are going to choose the method with the amendments, which is immediately bring us to deliberation. And I noticed someone has their hand up in the audience.
So perhaps we'll take a break from our discussion and do our public comment and then bring it back to council. Mr. Montemayor?
Yes, we have one speaker, or one hand raised, I should say, from Gail and Pete Shoemaker. Gail and Pete, you may now unmute yourself.
Great. My name is Gail Benton Shoemaker, and thank you for taking public comment on this. I wanted to speak in support of the letter of opposition to SB 9. When I learned about SB 9, I contacted California Relief in Sacramento. They're a network of statewide urban forest organizations, and they inform members of this network about state policy having to do with urban and community forests. And Chuck Mills, who is the Director of Public Policy and Grants with California Relief, has really looked into SB 9 and said, the bill language and most recent analysis seems to support the notion that the bill could override local ordinances, such as heritage tree or protected tree ordinances. So it would be great. I know you're starting to talk about the various amendments or sections to this letter of opposition, and something regarding that local ordinances need to be considered and can't be automatically that overridden, so that the ordinances that we all work so hard to protect and to discuss and adopt aren't lost in this process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Mayor Beckmeyer, I see no more hands raised at this time.
Okay, then we'll close public comment and bring that back to council.
Tina, I have a question for this, okay? And this is something that we had when we did merging of the lots back in the 80s. How many bites at the apple do they have? Now, I know there's, like my lot here is 12,000 square feet, okay? And there's a rule in here that no lot can be more than 40% of the original size lot. So, but once I've subdivided and had my 2 lots, can I then subdivide one of those again to build another house? Because I still have lots that are bigger, you know what I mean? How many bites at the apple does a person get?
My understanding is that that there is some restriction on the property that it could not be subdivided under SB 9 again.
Okay.
So if it's large enough to qualify for a subdivision, say it's a really big lot and the R1 zoning would allow it to be subdivided, that may be the case if the lot is large enough, but under these specific provisions.
Okay, now is it SB 10? Because I've heard that there was SB 10, which would basically eliminate R1 zoning. Is that on the block, or
I don't know the status of SB 10.
Okay, because I'd heard there was some legislation up there for that. Okay, thank you. I'm also concerned in that it's also removing the provision here that the state will not reimburse us for certain mandated costs that they're going to impose on us when they're supposed to. So that's another thing. It's kind of like a bottomless pit of us spending money. The state mandates, just like they do with the schools. They say you do it, but we're not going to pay for it. So, and I think that's another concern.
I agree. Other questions or comments?
I mean, I don't have any questions. I think that as written, SB 9 was confusing to people because it appeared to be an affordable housing bill, but it actually was restrictive. And I think there's some really important things in the amendments, specifically the adequate access for police, fire, and other public safety vehicles and equipment. That's really important, especially in our city. And the very high fire hazard zones. So there's a lot of things in the amendments that I think are really important to have. So I would approve to have the recommended action.
And I think Mayor Beckmeyer was the one that asked to have this put on the agenda. So I'd like to commend her for bringing this forward for us to state our opinions and write our letter. So I think that was good.
I was trying to give everybody a chance to speak. Didn't want to jump in too much. I think that for Pacifica, this is not a good bill, and it was awkward. I'll say the awkward part. Awkward when Senator Becker contacted me to ask what were our issues. Where did we stand? This was before he voted for it. And I shared with him my concerns about the number of substandard lots that we have in Pacifica. And so we already have a lot of little lots. And then we have a lot, I learned after tooling around on Zillow, that are just right over the 5,000 mark, but still very dense already. And with our ADU ordinance, as I pointed out to him, we do have that in place. We had it in place before the state put it in place. And it's been one of our strategies. And I think it's one that will work for us. When you think about modified ranchers with the downstairs area and that kind of thing, I just don't think the lots in R1 in most of Pacifica, no, Mr. O'Neill's lot notwithstanding, but it's just, there were a lot of concerns for me around, and the biggest one is not having a say for our city, to not be able to take what we know to be the constraints, and our planning department knows well to be the constraints, and implement them, and to simply have to approve it by rights. It just isn't, I don't think it's the right way to go. My biggest concern really is speculators. And I know that they're trying to put provisions in there to avoid that, but it didn't seem strong enough to me, and it came very late in the process. I think the last go around, which was a week ago. So these are the concerns that I had. And as I was seeing the growing number of cities that were expressing the same kinds of concerns that I had, I decided I would have to explain to Senator Becker why Pacifica would be taking this position. But it is, I think, the right thing for Pacifica.
Okay. I guess make a motion. Is staff clear on any amendments we wanted to add to Pacifica spin on this?
Yes, I had noted the concern with the affordability provision, and that both of them shouldn't be affordable, and particularly if one of them is owner occupied.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we set a letter of opposition to Senate Bill 9 as amended per the Cal Cities League, and then also our own amendments. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
And the lawyer pops up. Okay.
She probably wants to clarify.
Now, I was actually ready in case the motion didn't include the amendments. And so Councilmember O'Neill did a wonderful job including the amendments. And that was my concern.
Okay.
I can disappear again.
I'll buy you that drink, I promise you, Denise.
A motion by O'Neill and second by Beckmeyer, I believe I heard. Roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
And Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes, absolutely.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's agenda items. But we are going to adjourn the meeting tonight in memory of City of Pacifica Wastewater Division employee Robin Van Norman. Robin Van Norman was a Pacifican and lived in Balamar. He retired from Public Works Wastewater Division about 3 years ago. He worked at Calera Creek Water Recycling Plant as an operator 2 with grade 5 certification. After retirement, Robin continued to support the Calera Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant as a part-time operator by assisting the wastewater treatment plant during storm events when we needed long hours of operator coverage. Robin was instrumental with storm coverage during the last 3 years. Robin was an avid golfer and is survived by his wife and daughter. And I see that Deputy Director of Public Works, Lewis Sun, is here. Would you like to add some comments?
Thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer. I just wanted to relay a message from Robin's wife, Yvonne. She reached out to me and she wanted to give thanks to city council members. And she really appreciated this gesture tonight. So she just wanted me to relate that thanks to all the council members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. There being nothing further before the council, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:16 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, my bedtime.